Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another week of Brews here on TCGplayer.com. I'm Conley Woods, back from Grand Prix Denver. During my testing for Grand Prix Denver, I brewed up a lot of decks that I kind of set off to the side. I figured I would return to later. Didn't really want to distract myself, and I didn't think that these were necessarily the best decks for Denver. Unfortunately, I didn't have the best showing at Denver, but that's Magic. That happens. But one of the more rewarding things you pick up even when you do well is you kind of get a better sense of the metagame, kind of what could be what you can use to find an edge. And one of the things I really seen pronounced at Denver were decks that can curve out well and decks that were able to keep up with decks that can curve well, usually by curving out themselves, were just typically doing a lot better than decks that were trying to play from behind. The cards that can play from behind are strong, at least on paper. Things like Fumigate, Planeswalkers, stuff like that. But for some reason, not really for some reason, mostly because of the strength of individual cards, they really don't do their job reliably enough to keep up with the more proactive decks, especially the decks that curve out really strong early and have 3 or 4 cards in play by turn 4, in addition to lands, of course. So I wanted to kind of take a little bit of what we learned from the Mono Black Eldrazi deck and kind of turn it into something that curves out a little bit better, applies a little bit more pressure, and is a little bit more proactive, a little bit less mid-rangey. And this is kind of where I arrived. I started off wanting to build a black-green kind of madness tokens-based deck that took advantage of Westvale Abbey. But ultimately, the more and more I kept brewing around it, I got to more and more of a mono black deck. I had Voldera Pariah in my main deck. I had these Westfall Abbeys. I had From Under the Floorboards, which is kind of the signature card of the deck. I just eventually said, you know what, let me just make it mono black and take advantage of all these heavy black mana costs and zombies. So ultimately what we have here is kind of a zombie shell. We got Crypt Breakers, we have Relentless Deads, we have Diregraph Colossus, we have Haunted Dead, From Under the Floorboards, Dark Salvation, all zombie kind of tribal cards, but they're all this sort of token-based zombie cards. They work well with things like Kaladesh, who could sacrifice them to make himself larger. Also, Kaladesh makes zombies when your opponent's stuff dies. They work well with Westvale Abbey, where I can sacrifice 5 creatures to get a gigantic Profane Prince. They work well with Dark Salvation, where it scales up and kills larger and larger things, obviously. It just seemed like there was enough value here and enough of an aggressive kind of shell that I could fit it all into this. Thank you, NVIDIA. That I could fit it all into this sort of nice little package here. Smuggler's Copter sort of made perfect sense at blending it all together too. So it kind of made its way in, and then we got to this particular build. So really, what we're looking to do is kind of take control of 3 or 4 key synergy points. So the first one would be the zombie synergy, which is kind of surface level. We already talked about a little bit. Kaladesh sacrificing zombies, Dark Salvation scaling up, Diregraph Colossus making dudes and being larger himself, Relentless Dead returning zombies, and Crypt Breaker drawing you cards. All that pretty surface level, tribal, level 1 synergy. We got plenty of it. Next synergy is sort of the madness / graveyard / discard synergies. So we have multiple ways to discard cards for cheap and instant speed. So Sinister Concoction lets you discard for only a single black. Key to the City lets you discard for no mana at instant speed. Smuggler's Copter lets you discard for no mana at sort of instant speed on your turn. The Haunted Dead lets you discard at instant speed. Of course, you have to spend some mana, but you're going to get a reasonable payoff in a couple of creatures out of it. So all those things enable some madness for you. And then while we don't have a ton of direct madness, we do have From Under the Floorboards, which I think is one of our strongest cards and should be a card that ends a lot of games. We also have graveyard synergies like Diregraph Colossus, who will look to see how many creatures are in your graveyard, so you can benefit off that. And then we have Relentless Dead, which can return some cards from your graveyard back to play. So we have that synergy. So even though we only have one true discard synergy, I think we have enough stuff here that it actually ends up being more. Haunted Dead, for example, we're happy to discard it because even though it's in our graveyard, we can get it back in the future. So it's kind of like we didn't discard a full card. There is a notable card here that you might go, oh, why isn't this graveyard card in the deck? And it's mostly I ran out of room, but likely before all is said and done, I will get Scrap Heap Scrounger in this deck. There are a couple reasons it didn't make the deck. One, like I said, I ran out of room. Two, it's not a zombie, it has no tribal synergies. Three, it actually exiles your cards from the graveyard, which hurts future Diagraph Colossus. As he checks to see how many zombies are in your graveyard. So I thought that could be an issue. It also hurts Relentless Dead, as it can no longer return your zombies back to play, and you don't want to exile your Haunted Dead anyway. So I figured I could get rid of Scrap Heap Scrounger for now, although I can easily see him making it back into the deck in the future. Really, there's not too much. I mean, there's a lot of internal synergies in this deck. There's a lot of little things going on. We have like one loot land down here to get our madness. We got one Blighted Fen, a bunch of swamps. We have Sinister Concoction, as I already mentioned. We have some removal spells, but there's nothing like too crazy. Like it's all like little synergies that kind of come together mid-game. You can sort of figure this deck out as you play. It's worth noting just the small synergies that we pointed out up front. Things like free madness triggers from your copter and free madness triggers from your key to the city. Things like that are nice to note. The fact that Kaladesh can sacrifice zombies or vampires to get bigger is worth noting. But realistically, this is your basic sort of madness meets zombie show. We're just trying to take advantage of a few different cards like Sinister Concoction, which I feel like enables you with a instant speed draw spell and deals with some of the format's most difficult creatures. Even Emrakul, for example, you can kill with this, which is really nice. And then because we're black, because we're mono black, we get a robust sideboard with a whole bunch of options: 3 Harsh Scrutinies, 3 Transgress the Mind, 3 Voldare Pariah. I do think this card could go in the main deck, and it might go back in the future. I wanted to lower the curve of the deck a little bit, so I took out these and figure I'll bring them back in against creature decks. It is a very, very strong card. It will beat a lot of decks, including blue-white and things like that. And it has madness, so that's great as well. But I don't know if it needs to be in the main deck. I have a pair of Lost Legacy for the combo decks for Delirium, pair of Ruinous Path for the Planeswalker decks, and anything like Bant or mid-rangey fatties, Harsh Scrutinies for Blue-White Flash, and various things of that nature. And then 1 Essence Extraction to come in, and 1 Ob Nixilis, kind of serving opposite roles. Essence Extraction coming in against aggro, or any burn, life pressure based deck, and Ob Nixilis usually coming in against more of control based decks. But yeah, like I said, the deck is fairly simple. Only 1 Liliana in the main deck. That's all the room I can find for. I do think that a second or third Liliana might be nice, but she doesn't have any necessary amazing synergies. She's basically just a really strong card. So you kind of have to play her based on whether you value -2, -1. I do, but I don't value it at such a high rate that I need to jam 3 of her or 4 of her in the way that some other decks do. If the metagame shifts and there's a bunch of X1s running around, I would be happier. But right now you're talking about Selfless Spirit and there's not the 3/1 veteran Motorsmith. So you're not talking about, and I guess the 1/1 Artificer that gets +2/+1. But for the most part, you're not talking about too many small creatures. So if you are going to add additional Lilianas, it might just be best to add them to the board. As I kind of like this configuration, at least for starting things off. We're going to go through plenty of iterations, so I'm not going to lie to you and act like Liliana will only remain a 1-of because she is a very strong Magic card. But yeah, that's basically the deck. I want to talk about from under the floorboards for a second. This is an interesting card where if you spend the madness of 5, you get exactly the payoff that the card provided you. In that world, however, you discarded a card for free, if you will. So that's what you're looking to do. But even in the worlds where you discard and you only pay 4 mana and you get 2 zombies, or you pay more, you're really just looking to gain the benefit of not discarding a card to madness, getting a couple life, and advancing your board. You don't need to get so greedy with this that you're playing it for 6 or 7. If that happens, great. But feel free to fire this off for 1 or 2 every once in a while. Firing it off for 3 or 4 is going to be pretty commonplace, I would imagine. And then anything more than that, you're probably just winning the game. So don't get too greedy with the card. Use it aggressively, but proactively at the same time. Those are very similar concepts. But basically, what I'm saying is don't don't necessarily like wait for your opponent's turn to discard to it. Like feel free to attack with your copter and discard it to a copter on your turn, and not necessarily bluff it with a key to the city or something like that for the end of your opponent's turn. You don't need to get too fancy with it. You could just treat it like a good, powerful, Thrag Tusky style creature that came to play and gave you a bunch of life. You don't need to get too cute with it just because it has so much rate behind it that it's going to do a lot of work on its own. So, with that said, Dark Salvation, by the way, is it's an all-star. Great against mid-range decks and aggro decks. A little weird to figure out. Hopefully we'll get to cast some of these and show off the interface. But anyone that's seen my past zombie videos will know it's a little strange card, but very, very strong. But yeah, for zombies, let's just jump right into it and play some matches. I haven't played anything with this deck yet, so I don't really know what to expect too much, but it looks pretty sweet. And I'm pretty excited as, like I said, this is kind of one of the brews I discarded along the way to GP Denver. So I've been looking forward to getting some games in with this, and now that I have the time, it is time to do so. So for Mono Black Zombies, for TCGplayer.com, I'm Conley Woods. We'll be right back for round one. Hang in there.